you, all of you, for coming out tonight. Really, we need to thank God, because somebody told us we should never have a program on Thursday night. So for all you Scandal fans, I think Breon's going to have some kind of big board afterwards. I don't know, but at this point, why don't we get all the panelists to come up here right now? That will kind of save some time. So Layla, Amber, take a seat. Thank you. And it does say a lot about you, because I know you could be doing a lot of things on Thursday. For most of us in sports, we probably wouldn't have a program on this Thursday because it's the #1 sports marketing Thursday of the year. March Madness Thursday, so a lot of you might have got your bracket filled. How'd that Harvard win go for you guys? Dayton, Ohio State, you all had that too? Okay. Yeah, Wichita. Good. Before we get started, I do want Breon Dennis to welcome us. It's important, I think, for us to recognize those, the venues that we work, because Breon's business is to build his marketing, his base, and it relies on a lot of you in the room. So this is part of his ultimate strategy, so to bring Black MBAs here is a big win for him and the organization. So Breon, without further ado, just kind of welcome you here.
Whoa. Hey, good evening, everybody. Let's see. Good evening, everybody. If this is your first time here, welcome. If this is your second time here, welcome back home. As Larry mentioned, my name is Breon Dennis. I'm the Assistant Vice President of Community Outreach for your Texas Rangers Baseball Club. I started my career here actually 15 years ago today. I started out in security, and now you're looking at an Assistant Vice President who just graduated with his undergrad only 2 years ago. So when you kind of listen to the panelists that are here, it's very powerful that you have a lot of minorities in sports that you'll be hearing some great information from. So I'll be here throughout the course of the time here, but I want to tell you right now, to be here for 15 years and to see a lot of the diversity that I see sitting inside this room, I want to say thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here. For the folks who I saw look lost because they've never been here before, that's my job to change that. My job is to make sure you feel like you're at home at this place, so you don't park in lot B, walk across on your heels, get mad and say, hang on a second, where am I going? What you should say to yourself is, why haven't I come here before? This is your home. This is not a place that you only do this for the NBA event. We want you to come back again and again and again. The reason why I give you my information is because for those who took it down, they will get the benefit of knowing me closely. For those who do not take it down and want to look cool, don't call me for a hookup.
And we're going to start with somebody who's just like you, who got her MBA, and I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves, but I'm going to start with Tiffany because Tiffany just got her MBA. And Tiffany, go ahead and tell them about yourself, and now you got in the sports business, and maybe that'll shed some light on that, making that career transition.
Hello? Oh, sorry. I got my MBA, I promise. Okay, hi, good evening everyone. My name is Tiffany Saxton, and I recently got my MBA at the University of Dallas with a concentration in sport and entertainment management. And I now currently work for the Rangers. I'm the digital marketing coordinator. I just got awarded that position back in January of this year. I was a marketing intern prior to that for 6 months while I was still attending graduate school. I got this position actually from Larry Lundy, who is my mentor. I met Larry at the University of Dallas during a sport entertainment luncheon about 2 years ago. And I told Larry I'm getting ready to graduate, I'm looking for a job, and he introduced me to Breon Dennis. And I met Breon Dennis for like a meet and greet essentially. It was really quick. You know, I came dressed just in case if I was going to have an interview. But I met Breon and he kind of gave me some professional development skills. He helped me kind of improve my resume, so to speak. And when he found out I was interested in marketing, he said, there's 2 positions open in marketing right now. Let me call the VP of marketing. So he called the VP of marketing. She was available and he said, okay, you have 300 seconds to sell yourself. Are you ready to walk down there and meet the VP of marketing? I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know what to expect. I thought this was just a meet and greet. So I sat down, I met the VP of marketing, who is now my direct boss, and now I work for the Rangers, and it's an awesome experience.
Great, thank you. Layla?
Well, good evening. My name is Layla Brock. I'm the Director of Team Operations and Logistics for the College Football Playoff. The College Football Playoff is the organization that is taking over for the old BCS. I got my start in sports because I was a student athlete. I do not have an MBA. It's one of the regrets that I do have. But I started out, like I said, as a student athlete and realized very early on that I really wanted to work in sports. I started working in Boston, Massachusetts for the National Consortium for Academics and Sports. And I just talked to student athletes about the leadership skills that they possessed and how they could use those skills to create positive change on their campus. After that, I moved on to work at Florida Atlantic University as an academic counselor and realized that really wasn't my niche either, and really kind of did some soul searching and realized that the reason that I wanted to work in sports was because I wanted to work on the championship side of sports. You know, as an athlete, I really love the championship aspect of it. I love going to the Big Ten meets. You know, I ran at Penn State. I love going to the Big Ten meets, the NCAA meets. And so, and I also realized that I really loved football. So I was fortunate enough to land a position at the Orange Bowl in Miami. I was the team operations coordinator there and moved up the ranks and left there as a director of events and team operations, and then got the call to come here to Dallas to work for the college football playoff, and that's where I am now.
Great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amber Armstrong. I'm the executive administrator for Learfield Sports. Where do I work again? Has anybody ever woke up in the middle of the night to answer the phone and you answer the phone like you're at work? Yeah, that's the way I felt just then. Anyways, I work for Learfield Sports, and what Learfield Sports does is collegiate sports media. So we're in advertising. Anytime you're looking at one of our schools, which we own now 94 schools, or the media rights to 94 schools. So anytime you're watching one of our schools play or you're listening to it on the radio, any kind of advertisement that you may hear or see, that's what our company is responsible for. I don't have a background in sports. I didn't know I wanted to work in sports. I had no idea that there was an industry around sports. I watched sports, but I didn't know what else was going on. It was a complete accident. I was out on a sales call, walked into the office, saw the bells and whistles, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? And it took me all of maybe the 30 minutes to drive from Plano out to DFW to my office to realize that I wanted to get into the sports industry and there had to be something in there for me. So that's pretty much the way it started for me. Went back, found a job as an events coordinator, and called the person that stood me up for my interview and said, hey, you owe me an interview because this is the job I want. Got me in, interviewed, got the job, moved up, director of meetings and events, and now I'm the executive administrator.
Thanks, Andy. Last but not least, Mr. Grant.
Some tough acts to follow here. Great. Chris Grant, Director of Sports Services at Conference USA. We're located right down the street from Layla. Once were neighbors at one time when they first came. But our office is in Las Colinas. However, we stretch over, so basically to break it down, so what does Conference USA? We have 16 member institutions that stretch all the way from Marshall University up in Huntington, West Virginia, going down to East Carolina, all the way down to Florida Atlantic, Florida International, and I'm not naming them all, but coming all the way back to North Texas, all the way west to University of Texas, El Paso, Utah. And so basically what I do is we, outside of passing awards out at championships and smiling big for the camera, I get on Breon, he's like, I show all my teeth all the way, so I gotta get back on him. But other than that, basically we have a regular season scheduling, as well as I oversee the Student Athlete Advisory Committee. So that's kind of like my issue, I guess we'll get into that later, passion and helping giving back to student athletes, as well as getting cursed out at championships because the coach is not happy, all the way to all the game day management, making sure, so basically go to a city, I'll make sure we just came back from El Paso, we had a men's basketball championship. So with it being nationally televised, I'm working with the producers, working with the game management staff there at El Paso, and kind of bringing everyone together, putting them on the same page. So it's with a host of other things that comes along that we'll get into later. Got my start, was at Kentucky State University as a football student athlete. Graduated there and wanted to get in politics. Did an internship there, and that's where I was headed. So I was going towards the National Public Administration. But as I got closer, at basically getting down time to go to grad school, my dad was down at Southern University as a basketball coach. So I kind of sports runs in my family. Whereas I was like, all right, athletics, going to politics, yeah, Kentucky. Yeah, young black man, I'm not really going to work. And so it's kind of more still venturing out. I'm really a big fan of HBCUs. It's kind of where I got my start and really learned a lot about myself as well as a lot of my peers. So I went down to Southern, and I guess it takes someone to get knocked down before you can see where you're going. And so there for a year, Dad explores another job opportunity after a good season. He gets fired. They buy him out his contract. Well, where's that leave the grad assistant? You're going to stay in school. And so, they stayed there, did my National Public Administration And before that, or after that, did a year of law school. That's probably another tough time. I had to go home and say, Mom, Dad, it's not it. I'm not reading every night. So I knew my passion was back in athletics. So, like I said, it took those experiences for me to get there. So luckily, I did a lot of volunteering and relationship building with my AD at the time, Bob Grant, at Wright State University out of Dayton, Ohio. So I went in as a special assistant to the athletic director. Not a glorified position going in, but I went in, basically and asking to do anything and everything. With that, turned into an assistant athletic director position. And now brings me here to Dallas, far away from home, but with people like you all, kind of building those relationships. Breon, Tiffany, Amber, and Layla, and Larry as well, kind of connect me with the community. I'm glad to call this home in Dallas, Texas. So thank you for having me.
You all heard the stories here. I think a lot of you probably have the question, well, great, well, how do I get in? Well, I mean, this is a $400 billion industry, but professional sports, where a lot of the attention is played, is really a family-owned business. So if you're how many of you are in sales or marketing, by show of hands? Okay, great. And how about finance? Decent. And those two areas, there are roles for everybody. But it just may not be at the Cowboys Mavericks. There's only one job there. There's only one CFO. So tonight I'll hopefully explore some of the other options that you might get into in sports. And I'd like a couple of panelists, Layla, how do they get in? Because once again, Tiffany took her time, got her MBA, just like you guys, worked very hard. But how many of you would take 2 years out of your life to get to a job where you're going to work maybe 16, 18 hours a day, get up here at 9 o'clock, be at a Ranger game, go home at midnight some nights, and there's 81 home games. And you're probably not making that NBA salary you thought you might make coming out, going to that Fortune 500 corporation. So with that said, some of those might have to have a passion. One of the questions the NBA group sent to us was, what led you to get into sports? And why did you want to get into sports? And what was that key that got you in the door? So.
Absolutely. I think beyond being ready, I think you all are doing the right thing by getting the MBA, getting your education, and coming to events like this. One of the things that the CEO of the Orange Bowl said to me on my very first day was, who do you know? And I couldn't answer that question because I didn't have a strong network. But from that day on, I realized that he was asking me, who do you network with? Who is in your network? Who can you help and who can help you? So I think one of the biggest things, in order to get into this field, you really have to know the right people. You have to do the things that you're doing right now, and you have to really connect yourself with those people and really maintain those relationships.
And I will also add to that is that, Larry just mentioned something else, who do you know? I kind of call it the 4 W's. Now, first of all, it's what you know. What you're doing right now is very important. You cannot run a multi-million-dollar sports franchise without an MBA somewhere. Now every baseball team has an MBA in their front office trying to figure out algorithms and pitches on what's going to be the next hit. In these John Daniels world, all these Harvard Ivy League MBAs. Secondly, not only what do you know, but who do you know, like Layla said. And third, not what you know, who you know, but who knows you. And finally, what do they know about you? Now, most of the time when I'm talking to college students, and I would say mentor is the right word all the time, because all of us here are mentors, is really how can we help each other? And if I can't share a student that all I know about them is their Facebook page where they might be drunk at a party, that's really not going to help them out a lot. So just giving little tips like that might be important. So the second question is the talents and strengths you rely on most daily in life. Let's say, Chris, what do you rely on daily in your job? What is important to be successful in your job?
I'd say number one is relationship building. I work with over 120 coaches and administrators, keeping them all happy and I guess answering their needs on a daily basis. It's impossible. However, if I can show them that I'm working towards a common goal between everyone and that we want to be the best in what we do, then I think everyone's happy at the end of the day somehow, somewhere. Maybe not always, judging by a lot of the voicemails, but we try our best to do that. I think second of all is having what works for you as far as organization. True, you might not be able to step into my desk and know exactly where everything is or how my structure may be, but if you know what works for you and not trying to adopt someone else's style, but trying to take tidbits from each person you learn from, I think that's huge, to be successful on a daily basis. And I think thirdly is just knowing where you want to go, positioning yourself that you know all the ins and outs of your organization and not just what your job is, but that you're willing to help out in other areas when it may, hey, I got to take 2 more extra hours to do a simple task, and it may not be something sexy that you want to do. However, it's appealing to your resume, and it's something that you're able to speak on towards the future.
Great. And Amber, you've worked with the senior levels of the organization, your president, the chief revenue officer, the executive administrator. What are some of the challenges that you might face that the normal person may not see? They might see the glamour, you getting tickets, going to sporting events, everything's great, but what's the real deal?
Why do I get the hard question?
Oh, we'll all help in, we can jump in there.
Challenges is, I think really it's managing personalities. Most of the people that are trying to contact upper executives are either upper executives or people that have no business contacting upper executives. And it's a management game the entire time of trying to appease everybody, not step on any toes, but then at the same time try to stand your ground. And it's the same thing in working with my bosses. And a lot of times it's one of those deals where you're saying, okay, this is the way it's really done. And they're like, well, no, I want to be in first class. And you're like, no, really, this is the way it's done. Well, why can't I do that? Because this is the way it's done, you know, that sort of thing. So those are some of my challenges because of my background. I do have a trust factor. So they do trust the things that I say after I say them 5 or 6 times. Other than that, really I kind of reach back to the organization piece. That's one of the challenges, is because not only am I keeping myself organized, I'm trying to keep 3 other people organized, and it's a task and it's a chore. But one of the things that I pride myself in humility. Is that an oxymoron? I try to stay humble in it, and because sometimes there is, you know, a lot of extra stuff that I have to keep up with that doesn't even make any sense to me, but I try to stay humble and, you know, do what I think is best to keep everybody moving.
Thank you. I would say also one challenge that most of these executives face is sometimes you're not in control in the sports industry. How would you like to be the best marketer in the world and you're the CMO of the Philadelphia 76ers? You've lost 20 straight games. That's not going to help you get more people in the seats. If you're people, you can be as great as you want to be. Or even here at the Texas Rangers or the Cowboys. Hey, if Jerry Jones is not putting a winner, you can be as great as you want to be, but it might not take. They're still going to sell out, but there's different challenges that are just out of your control. And I would just caution if people want to get into sports, another thing is there is an unlimited supply of people to replace you. The Cowboys, the Mavericks, those with the logo here, the Rangers, they think there's somebody ready to replace you already. So from a style and guy standpoint, if there's any harm in him on the negotiations, they figure there's somebody, you know, there's right around the corner ready to replace you. So just be prepared for that. And the third thing I would say in terms of challenges, just don't look at the professional sports. There's some other opportunities you can get into sports without actually being on the sports team. Volunteering for nonprofits who are dealing with sports. Volunteering for athletes' charities. There are a lot of those, and some people in the room here that have events. I know Jim Austin's here, and I saw Brother Breakthrough, Joe Breedlove, who worked with IMG, was Martinez's strength coach. So figure out different ways you might get. Whenever I see something in the paper, many of you saw the article on the Sports Commission. Did anybody see that? That maybe we don't need one, maybe we do. That's somebody's raising their hand to do business with them. So think of that as being opportunistic. Next question that came up here is, what is the one trait that you possess that help you get into the position? And we'll start with Layla.
Another tough question. Let's see. I think probably my drive, and just my drive for perfection. I think that when you work in sports, like you said, there's always somebody that's, just like if you're on a team, there's always somebody that's right behind you that's ready to take your position. And so you have to make sure that you're always on your A game. But you also have to forgive yourself if you're not on your A game one day. You know, everybody has a bad day. Everybody has them. And so, you know, sometimes you have to dust yourself off and just say, look, you know, I tried my best, but my best wasn't that great today. Tomorrow's going to be better. So I think that's one of the things that I had to learn, really, is just that I was born a perfectionist. I'm always going to be perfectionist, but just realizing that no one is perfect.
Thank you. And Tiffany, if you're looking to get into the sports business, you just graduated, you have your MBA, you're out there working, how did you go about getting in? Because this was not your first rodeo, this is not your first job. You did try a couple other things. How did that go for you?
Oh yes, you know, I came to you every time when I needed a job. It hasn't been my first rodeo. It's been really hard actually getting into the sport management industry. One thing I can say is I've always been passionate about sports, like Layla, I ran track in college. And so I was always around the business, I was always around the industry, and I told myself I need to be an executive within sports. I don't know who I need to meet, I just know I need to find something. So I made sure to follow up and get my MBA, but also doing like networking events. So something like this, even just going out, just meeting the right people. Personally, what I did is I created an Excel spreadsheet with all the contacts that I met. So I had their name, their phone number, their email address, and I made sure just to follow up. Let me just get my foot in the door, meet you face to face. Let me show you what I can, prove to you, to your business, how I can be a great asset. And so that's one key takeaway as far as advice. Just create an Excel spreadsheet, try to meet in front of these people, and hope for the best.
Another thing I'll say about the interns in general, and even some of you who are experienced veterans, it's a two-way street. So if you're trying to get with Breon, as he said, make it two-way. Maybe you schedule a group sales night. You're bringing revenue to his organization just by bringing the family out here. So as you look for help and look for guidance, look for opportunities, also look for how you can help that mentor or that advocate in your life. So from that, Chris, and this goes to everybody here, this is a tough business too. How do you balance this work-life balance? Because every time I see you working, so how do you get that quality time?
Work hard, play hard, right? That's the motto. It's tough. Myself, I think initially getting into the business, there's no balance. If you like I said, it's survival, and someone else always looking to step in and take that position from you. And so you have to be dedicated. You have to have an understanding partner, a family, and or if you have children, know how to incorporate them into what you're doing if you're passionate about it. I think you do that. I've luckily been successful to have great mentors as far as my former bosses showing me how their kids, #1 fans of ours. How can we get them to more camps, and how can they be the ball boy, ball girl, things like that. If you're going to be involved in the business. But outside of that, personally myself, I haven't figured it out probably while I'm still single because I'm married to the job. But at the end of the day, I have figured out year after year how to take, I guess, not let more away from work, but how to balance it, so to speak, knowing when to leave work and before turn the lights go out, and then coming home and then when you have smartphones, iPads, your laptops. So maybe I had to send an email here and there, have the understanding, but put that on the table. Whether it's your relationships or it's family time as well, and hopefully you have the support that'll be there. And if not, hey, you have to get on board.
Yeah, I always suggest do it young, do it now, do it while you're single, because at that time you can make the commitment, the leap, take the risk you need to take. Just like in your career right now, take the MBA. That takes a lot of personal sacrifice and courage. And I appreciate the Dallas Black MBA suggesting these questions here, but I think with the room this full, I want you to get what you came here for tonight, and if not, I'm pretty sure we'll all pass you cards and you can talk with us afterwards. But at this point, I'd like to kind of open it up for questions, so you can ask what you want, direct your question who you want to answer it, and then after the day is over, hopefully you will get what you came for tonight. Any questions from the group? Yes.
My question to the panel is, should someone have an idea, a concept that they believe would go to infinity and beyond, how do they get in to present that concept to the organization?
I'm going to say this because that's what I do every day. The first thing I will say to you is you might want to get an attorney and trademark and patent and get you an MBA.
Oh yeah,
Okay, great.
I have my MBA.
Great. And after you do that, I would think find out, and a lot of the what's great about this world, and I have some of my colleagues here, Darnell Reese and people work. Back in the day, I started when there was no Twitter, there was no Facebook, there was hardly even websites. You can get everything on the websites now. Yes, I wouldn't go like that far. Anyway, what I'm saying is anything you want to pitch, you can go on to that. My strategy is go on, find out who is the decision maker. If you're trying to pitch something to the Rangers, who's the chief marketing officer. Once you find out who that person is, look at the other executives, find out who you know that may know that person.
Right.
This is a great group here. There's members from other organizations, Links, Jim Austin Online, which everybody's on, I'm sure, and you can connect. So if you don't know somebody, maybe Breon does, or maybe I do, that can put you in front of that person.
Okay, thank you.
I think another big part of Larry is, being willing to, sacrifice your pockets not getting fat on the first time around. Almost, to find out what you can do for the organization, prior to you getting your foot in the door as well. I think that's the big, especially in sports, because you're approached with so many different items, mass emails on a daily basis that it all looks like spam. But, building a relationship, it really helps.
Right, and this is not a get rich.
No.
I appreciate that. This is a community youth related.
Right, no, for sure. Yeah, if you're looking to get into athletics, is not a get rich opportunity.
Right.
And to put that out there now, eventually it will pay off, and I think we all live comfortably, and you have to live within your means as well. But at the end of the day, you're not looking to become a millionaire right off bat. Maybe 30 years down the road, you still might not get it. But it's one of those things that if your passion is behind it, the reward is the love you get from it, and seeing the impact you make on student athlete lives or whomever in the community and things like that.
I'm about to graduate in May, sports administration. And I'm thinking about taking 3 more classes and certification to either get human resource certified or sports administration. Would that be a good idea? To add on to that, or what do you think?
So just having more kind of gives you a better, I don't know how to put this. Exactly, a better advantage versus other candidates. When you're working in the sports industry, there's so many people who want your job. So, even now, working as a digital marketing coordinator, I still get emails asking for jobs. I get people coming towards me asking if there's a marketing internship or a marketing position open. So if you're able to just improve your resume or add more caliber to your status, I would definitely go ahead and get that certification.
Thank you.
I was wondering what opportunities there are for someone coming towards the counseling or psychological aspects of sports.
That is a huge area right now. I'm going to let the college folks talk about player development. When kids and coaches don't act right, there's consequences, and there are people on every staff in the pro leagues that work with them.
Right now, a hot topic is in the NCAA mental health issues. Each athletic department now, according to bylaws of the NCAA, require them to have a life skills administrator. That's someone that can transition student athletes to life after sports, career development, resumes, as well as how do I utilize services on campus? Whether it's I need to see a psychiatrist for a certain issue, where's the health lab, whatnot, maybe on campus. As well, I'm trying to think what else, drug and alcohol, things like that. You're dealing with real life issues that the coach really doesn't care. The coach cares about the W's and L's at the end of the day. So that's a route, looking at hearing that side of social and mental health is an excellent area to get involved in, as well as just kind of moonlighting on the side. I think if you can come in and they speak to the student athletes and let them know publicly what's out here in the Dallas community service offered. That's something big that athletic departments have funding for, which are grants that basically can keep you going financially and put in your pocket, as well as you being able to give service back. And
Well, I will just add one thing. I think never before has there been more an opportunity in this area because if you think Mr. Sam's coming out of Missouri, dealing with the gay and lesbian issue, dealing with diversity, incognito. These people are now forced to have internal meetings on how do we deal with this. They need professionals because they haven't got it right. So that's every sports team, even down to PSAs. How do parents act right? Parents don't know how to act right at games at the Little League. So this is a big issue. Any other questions?
My question is, I have a real estate company, but I also work with ADT in the business department. I don't know what we need to do or what route we need to go to be able to have the players and maybe install services in their businesses, in their homes, if they have side businesses. What would I go about doing, getting a contract with the Rangers team? And I met you, got a picture with you, and so he was cool, but I couldn't understand him. So I was like, okay, let me talk to someone else. I have to go to this department, to this event. So what route would I have to go if I'm thinking about a contract? Because I do sell business services. I love it, believe it or not. And I know your real estate is sewn up. When players come in, you guys send them to whomever. So what would we need to do as a company at ADT?
Well, I would say, number one, for any services, I think in life, you need to start right now. People are now, for all better or worse, recruiting at AAU levels. If you're trying to be an agent for some college kid, you're basically too late. at 6th grade level, these kids have been taken care of, so by the time they get up, they're developing their base. One thing that is great is, which didn't happen back in the day, is if that agent happened to be, let's say from general market, let's say Caucasian, whatever it might be, he dictated the next 20 business decisions. Their florist, their real estate agent. Now that it's being a little bit more diverse, that's how that happens. I would also say, working with the organizations like, and I would let Layla talk this, because some of them have minority supplier opportunities, or looking for diverse suppliers and services. So I know that you have to hire a lot, and that was really your role. So how did you go about that?
I mean, exactly what you're just talking about is just reaching out to minority supplier, you know, the chambers of commerce, things like that. We'll reach out to those groups to make sure that we're including everyone that we need to include and just connecting them to the right people. So as long as you're connected with those groups, then you know we'll be able to find you.
Thank you. Well, today I signed up Do Perfect, and they tell me they come to you guys' events all the time, learning about basketball over and stuff. I'm trying. Thank y'all.
I do want to say one other thing before we get to Ramona, is that I want to know that the time is over. Amber, if you could talk about your minority opportunities and inclusion program you did, because the sports industry has not been diverse. It did not look on the field. So there's a big emphasis right now, is the NFL has Rooney Rule, but there's not a Rooney Rule on the business side. But they did something unique, and I'd just like to share that with you real quick.
Okay, so Learfield Sports was founded in a place called Jefferson City, Missouri. In Jefferson City, Missouri, there's probably maybe 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 black families. I'm not really sure, and I'm just going to be candid with you. When I went and looked, that was what I saw. And it reflects, the foundation of the company was reflected by how it was founded. We had a bunch of Midwestern Caucasian males in our employment. And when I first started working there, at first it was kind of funny. And I mean, it didn't bother me or anything because that's how I grew up anyways. But then after a while, I started noticing more and more and more as I looked out into the field, 450 employees, and I could see 3 minorities. And I will tell you that there were no Hispanics and there are still no Asians. So it was interesting to me, and I started kind of pushing a little bit, and we had some conversations with MOA, which is the Minority Opportunity Athletics Administration, and they started talking with us and we with them, and how we could partner to help change that face. So what we've created at this point is we've created a Minority Academy, and basically what that is we've started the selection process of bringing in some people into Learfield Sports to sit, listen to what we do in terms of sales and how we have our processes, but also make it a little bit more valuable to them by giving them some business coaching, giving them some opportunities to be able to network with some of our executives, but also some of the minority executives in the sports industry here in Dallas, and also bringing in athletic directors from other places. With doing that, we're hoping that at the end of their time with us, first of all, that they will go out and tell people, hey, there's an industry out there and they're looking for us. The other part is selfish. We want to hire some minorities, and so we're looking for the best and the brightest, and we've already collected the resumes, and we've started, as I said, the selection process. But what we want to do really is just kind of bring some people in so we can change the face.
So my question is, strategically, if I were wanting to get into the area of media training with athletes, is it best to go through their managers or through the league, or what's the best way to do that, especially when they're young, they haven't had any media training?
I would volunteer my service, start at the AU basketball team, get them ready, they start to know you. I start at the high school level, pick your favorite high school team. I think Dallas just had 3 state champions, Kimball. You go down the list, Madison. Volunteer that services, and so you're in the pipeline already, and then going towards both sides. I would meet with the conferences to talk about, did you have these services available, and then also to the agents and offering them some of those services, because it's a full court press when you're talking about athletes, because everybody's been on these youngsters since they were 6. So now everybody thinks they're the media trainer. Mom's the media trainer. So to get somebody like you who's been in 10 years, and nothing wrong, I'm pretty sure some of the moms are very good, but they haven't been on Channel 5 News like you.
And Ramona, another key way is basically what we have at each university, the senior woman administrator, and they tend to oversee the academic advising, life skills area that I mentioned earlier. That's definitely a great contact to go through. You can go to any university website, athletics page, and just find their staff directory. And then almost you want to send an email to them. And I wouldn't recommend sending a mass generic email, but something almost to the tune of you knowing a little something, doing your research on each university and campus, mainly starting at the Division I level, being there's more funding there as opposed to the Division II, Division III schools, which also have some ways of funding it. But I think it's your market is really your Division I athletes who are on national TV and local media markets as well.
And what was that position?
The Senior Woman Administrator, so SWA, you'll see. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask all of you, talked about how you started and got into the industry. If you don't mind sharing with us here amongst us family members, what's next? Where's this going? Is the sports industry long-term for you? And if so, how's what you're doing today going to take it?
For long-term, I actually want to utilize my MBA. So I want to start and own and manage my own consulting firm where I'm branding, marketing, and doing any kind of public relations for professional athletes. Whether that's getting them appearances, getting them endorsement deals, even media training. That's what athletes need. I used to work for a NFL agency here in Dallas called Willis & Moy Sports Group, and a few of our clients got in a little bit of trouble. So if they had someone like a publicist who was there for them 24/7, or anyone to help them kind of help them be in the positive light, I think that's critical in the sports industry now. So that's my long-term goal. I love working for the Rangers. I love working for an organization, but owning my own business, utilizing my MBA, that's my long-term goal.
And Breon, that's 10 or 20 years from now. It's just going to be good for a while.
One of the other parts of your question was, is sports, or will sports be in your career in the long term? And the answer is absolutely yes. And I think that anybody who works in sports will tell you that once you get this bug, it's hard to get rid of it. I mean, there's a certain thrill with working in sports. And there's a lot of grunt work, there's a lot of long hours, a lot of days where you wake up in a city and you're like, where am I? Because I travel so much for my job. But then you get out there and you see that game being played on the field, or you see everything that you've done for a whole year come to fruition, and you love it. And so for me, absolutely sports is always going to be a part of my career. Eventually I'd love to be a conference commissioner, so the position I'm in right now is going to help to set me up for that. I don't know when that's going to happen, if that's going to happen, but I just do know that whatever happens after this is just icing on the cake, because I love what I'm doing, and I think that if you talk to anybody up here, they would say the same thing, is that you love what you're doing. Once you get your foot in the door in sports, don't ever leave.
I just wanted to address the longevity portion of it. When I look at the sports industry, there's so many different industries that fail. This is the one industry that keeps going. Can speak to college sports. When everything else started to crash, people were still going to games. They're still buying advertisement. They're still going to concession stands. They're still buying attire. That's the only kind of excitement or happiness or opportunity for them to lose themselves is to go to a sporting event. So the long term in being in sports, it's always going to be around, and you're always going to get paid. I mean, that's the way I look at it. So.
And I always share with those who actually have gone outside the sports industry, you can take sports wherever with you. Let's say you go work for a nonprofit. We had to work on some pink for the NFL. Somebody had to do that, so why not me? Or you had to do something for art. Or the Final Four. You have to create jobs that people aren't giving you. Nobody at CBS Turner was calling me to say, Larry, we want you to do something for the Final Four. So we actually had to create an event. This just happened to be the 20th anniversary of the first black coach to win an NCAA championship, Don Thompson, 30 years, and then 10 years later, Nolan Richardson won it. So we were able to create an event just solely around that because they weren't thinking about that. So if you think you have an idea, you can make that happen, and you can bring sports to whatever it is you're doing. At least that motion, but sometimes there are very limited jobs in sports, so you have to take that passion with you, and maybe you pick up intramurals after work, or whatever that is, because there's only a limited jobs in there. So just think about options. Life is not over if sports is not in the card. Any other questions?
We mentioned that, and later talk about being a conference commissioner. And that's why I hate to pigeonhole myself and say, conference commissioner, athletic director. Ultimately, my goal always has been to be an athletic director. And not so, I guess, the football side of things is great, but I really like the mid-major level. So someone like, I'm trying to think of school around here. I guess, SMU would be on the mid-major side, North Texas type deal, whereas you really can have an impact on the student athletes, and you kind of be there on the campus, and you're not going to be with them daily, but you can make decisions that will impact their lives. And ultimately, I think that's what drives me most is me bettering someone else's life on a daily basis. So trying to make that my goal. I have two in this room that I feel like I haven't done a great enough job because on the road, this and that, trying to please everyone at work. But I feel like I need to do a better job organizing myself now and then learning my job so I can have the ability to give back more and make sure they get to where they want to be through me.
Thanks for the question, Kevin.
Right now, I'm working on a dual degree. I'm working on an MBA in real estate as well as a Master of Science in Entrepreneurship. And that's just kind of in the hopes of, without going into too much detail, taking on a capital-intensive project of developing and then being a CEO of a complex that brings in these student athletes looking to be recruited eventually. But a big part of the value proposition for me is bringing in these coaches that are retired or ex-professional athletes who maybe, don't have too much going on and maybe will want to come out here and use their skills and their knowledge. So do you guys have any advice as to reaching those retired or ex-athletes and kind of where they hang out?
Yes, we're working right now. That's one way. I would call the NBA Retired Players Association. They have a chapter here. The president, Sissy Powell, I'll be happy to give this information. They have a retired NFL Players Association, and you're very, very right on because after your 7-figure contract, most athletes don't understand that 2.3 years is all, and that's the average. So after it's over and that limelight's over, a lot of athletes are very inaccessible right now. You can't even get to them right now. But as soon as they retire and that last check is stopped, you would be surprised how amenable they are to doing appearances, going to golf tournaments, and then suddenly they're able to do that. So I would think the Retired Players Association is one way, and that public information too, but I'd be happy to get you in touch with them. Any other questions?
The OCC has made regulations that we got to exhaust everything with the relationship that we have with a homeowner on a mortgage. My question is to you, Chris, and you with the Conference USA. Are y'all exhausting all y'all resources, especially for players that's going to be in the NFL, as much as for branding and making sure they understand their brand and a balance sheet and the income statement, instead of just them spending their money personal bank account. I got paid today and I'm gonna go spend, and 3 years later, after he just said the contract's over with, they filed a bankruptcy. And it's affecting our African American community as well as other communities. And these people who made in 6 years, 1.5 million, minimum salary, they made $500,000. Are y'all exhausting your resources to assist these young athletes, student athletes, instead of them basic requirement courses, physical education or career development? Are y'all making it a requirement to take a business class or a finance class and things of that in the upcoming future? I understand you speaking about mental health and bullying and gay and lesbian. Is that importance, or is the NCAA kind of we can't talk about that because of, we may have publicists and media companies want to talk to the players or something? Is that importance to the conference and the NCAA?
Life Skills Initiative was put in back in 1994, I believe, to kind of answer some of those questions. To get to steer the student athletes more towards career development. What is your future outside of athletics? What is your goal ultimately besides playing in the pros? But as far as taking classes and requirements, you can't really steer a student athlete to what you think is best for them. They all have their core classes that they have built on campuses, and we work with our academic advisors to bring them in for a meeting and kind of get as a whole the ideal thinking, the route we want them to go. But I'll be honest with you, we have I'll just use like a South Dallas area for instance, a student athlete trying to make it for his family. There's nothing that's getting in his way, outside of the class, and so we have people in place and provide more resources. So we exhaust our funds at the conference level, being that we're nonprofit, work for our member institutions. So how they spend it and how it's given out is kind of up to them. But we have programs in place like the Student Athlete Opportunity Fund Whereas it doesn't really answer all those, all those questions, but it does help out, and kind of make their lives on campus a lot easier. They kind of think about, okay, what is my curriculum that I need to achieve to graduate, as opposed to how I'm gonna eat tomorrow and the day after next. And so, as we continue to move forward, I think those questions continue as the NCAA development programs, such as a career in sports forum, where they bring 500 student athletes to Indianapolis and bring a bunch of administrators as well. They kind of do interview, sessions, resume building, things like that, as well as leadership forums down in Orlando and kind of going across the country now. It's just, so many, and you can't take care of them all like you would want to. So they try to reach the ones that really want to be reached. And I guess, it's people like myself, Layla, Amber and Tiffany, if they were coming to college side, that, basically need, having more of an impact, but it's tough because, it's not, those positions aren't the attractive positions that people, you just have to have a passion about it to make those sort of folks be successful.
And I think it also depends on the university. I know when I was in college, we were required to take a life after school class. And so we had to sit through financial management, career management, all mental health issues, all those things that you're talking about. We were forced to do that. And I went in kicking and screaming, but I was glad that I went through it. So I think that it really just depends on the university and the level and the importance that they place on it. I mean, to Chris's point, there's certain things that are put in place by the NCAA and by the conferences, but if the university really wants to do it, they can.
And to me, this is a personal pet peeve of mine. That's an awesome question. This is a cultural issue. Most of our general market families, they don't have these issues come because they've been taught at the breakfast table, dinner table, that there's actually, when you make money, you really don't make a million. Most of our athletes, they're buying into a lifestyle. We've sat down with families where they think they're supposed to get 2 cars, jewelry. Nobody's telling them that you don't really make a million. You're going to have about $500,000. After that, after you pay your taxes, you got state, you got, oh, by the way, you got to take care of mom, and oh, you bought her a house too. So baby, you got $100,000 left. You don't have time for that hoopty that you're trying to do. And whatever lifestyle you're trying to do at the home and your entertainment, NBA All-Star Game ball, and you saw a video. I mean, it goes on and on and on, but what's up to that individual and their agencies to make that happen, and families? Yes, sir.
I just want to thank each of the panels and everyone here this evening. My son is an 8th grader, and he has a passion about going into the industry. And just the frank and open, candid conversations that happened this evening has been very enriching to me and to him. And I just want to thank you guys for that.
Nationwide, on side. Thank you.
This is great being out here tonight. Y'all are doing a great job. My name is Paul Sorrell. I work at Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, where I'm a wealth manager. I teach people how to get rich, and then I help those who are already rich stay that way, and they like it. My question to you guys, if y'all could put your thinking caps together and name for me 3 job titles in your industries, an entry-level job, and what's the entry-level salary, and what's a lower 6-figure paying job, and what's an upper 6-figure paying job. I'm trying to get a sense for, I'm in money, so I want to know what's the entry-level pay, what's a low 6-figure job, and what's an upper 6-figure job. You can tell me a 7-figure if you want to.
Well, considering here at the ballpark, in sports you don't get paid a lot. They give you a lot of hookups. They feed you a lot, if you cannot tell by my figure. But as far as jobs, entry-level jobs here, you're looking at about $28,000. That is not after taxes, regardless of what your degree is. You can come in with a master's. Basically, this is Drake. You start from the bottom. Now you're here. As far as your promotion, as you go up, we do not promote on color. We promote on hard work. But as far as when you go up the ranks, you're looking at about $45,000. You're looking at about 60 to 65 based on if you're in operations. When you think about sales in sports, the thing about sales in sports is when the Rangers did good, there was a lot of paper being made. When the Rangers did bad, there was no paper being made. So sales is a lot of commission. We also have sponsorship. So as you see Capital One, we just changed our stadium to Globe Life Park. So obviously that is a sponsorship deal as well. When you start looking at the 6 figures positions, those are far few in between, because basically when you look at our executive staff that we have, they have contracts, generally 2 to 3 year contracts. Unlike Ron Washington, who just got a contract extension, when you look at what they do on the business side, a lot of times it depends on what your department does as a whole. Because our company is a for-profit company, so the return on investment, what we do is in sports, they recycle you. When I first got here in 2000, they told me my life expectancy in sports, I should say my career expectancy in sports, was only 3 years. So when you find a lot of students who say they want to get into sports, we at the Rangers, we discourage that. We look for business people. Because when you want people to get in sports, we do not need another jock sniffer. We don't need another cleat chaser. We don't need another fanatic. We need business people. So when I first started with the Rangers, I was probably making about $32,000. That's actually with a family. And riding a bike, getting a permanent tan, riding around the ballpark. But as far as what I'm doing now, I mean, I get a chance to walk around and get hooked up and not pay for stuff. So that's the cool thing about working in sports is you don't get a chance to pay for a lot of things because people want to spoil you and do things. That's why when I see some of my colleagues here, I laugh at them because where we work at in sports, there's only 2 major league teams in Texas, us and the Astros. So when you think about how small of a fraternity that is, it's very competitive. So if you find people that want to get into sports, if you can make $28,000 and be comfortable with it, just be true to yourself. Because Tiffany came in with a master's, and I kind of laughed at her because society tells you, hey, go get that master's. This is what you should make. Well, there's 200 positions out of the whole, and you say the average job is paying you $80,000. That means we have 100 making above 80, and you have 100 making less than 80. So here I was without a 4-year degree. When I made $33,000, I was happy just because I had direct deposit. So, so no more Ace Cash. I was like, yes, Calvin got promoted. so I was good. So anyway, that's it.
It's funny. So entry level in our industry and collegiate media, collegiate sports media, you're looking probably the same thing. It's about 28,000, and it is true. It goes across the board, regardless of how many degrees you have. You come in and you're just another person with a degree. There's a ton of people now that have degrees. It used to be degrees were like a kind of a commodity, and you could buy and sell them, and you know. But now everybody has 1 or 2 or more. They actually don't make bad money. They start at about 40. And from there, I mean, our senior sellers are pulling down about 80 or 90. And our general managers, they're in the 6. Our VPs are well into the 6s. And my boss gives me money, so.
I'll also say on the way out, if you have something, pick up a copy of Sports Business Journal. I would say, once again, you know, they will have salary ranges. Also go to sportsjobs.com or workinsports.com. You can register in teamworkconsulting.com. They have the salaries, some of the levels there. But if you really want to get wealthy in sports, like I said, I've got a dad in Tremont and I got a 9th grader, so failure is really not an option. So you have to have, let's come up with the X game. Somebody said, I'm going to come up with MMA. Would you think somebody's going to get in a cage and watch and be on national TV fight 10 years ago? No. So you black collar sports on TV, what is not being done that you could do? And that's probably the greatest, because the other guys who are the agents, they're making the money. That financial planner for the Williams sisters, I mean, if he was sitting in bed and said, I'm going to make 2 tennis players, and he did it, man, imagine what you could do in terms of being their financial accountant, their attorney. So all those people are probably doing very well. Any other questions? Yes.
I was actually in classes with Tiffany before she graduated at the University of Dallas. My question is, I have a lot of the educational background in sports with the undergrad in exercise science, now getting an MBA with the concentration in sports and entertainment management, but my work experience doesn't align with that. So I was wondering how to beef up the resume to where when CEOs or vice presidents or hiring managers are looking to make it more appealing to get an interview.
I had a lot of experience in sports. I started undergrad in college when I went to undergrad in Jacksonville. But if you don't have a lot of experience, I would try volunteering. We have the NCAA Final Four. I know they're looking for a lot of volunteer opportunities, but even just something on your resume, even if you're showing that you worked in different industries, like Breon said earlier, it's really business. So So you don't have to be working for the Texas Rangers or the Dallas Mavericks. As long as you're showing like those skills that you can possess to a sport management opportunity, that's fine too. But I would start at least with volunteering, you know, even working with kids, coaching, even in your church community, just something to kind of get that on your resume.
And Lundy Market, we take plenty of paid interns. We got them working right now on this bench. I mean, that's just part of it. One thing I would say about, you know, most of the MBAs, I go to the Black MBA conference every year, they're looking to offer $80,000, $100,000. You're not trying to get $38,000 jobs. So a lot of times in sports, there are 100 unpaid intern jobs. If you're willing to work, learn, and that's how Jerry Jones, they separate the pretenders from the contenders. They're in cubicles. Whoever's going to sell this, 100 of you here today, 10 are going to be here tomorrow. It depends who sells. So if you have something you're specific about, you know, it's just like though in the business, so it's not getting a grade like University of Dallas. It's money. So if there's a project you work on, we can work on it. That's how Tiffany started. We went on a project and worked out and get another one. Hopefully you don't lose that client. So, right?
So, you know, I mean, if somebody can vouch for your work ethic, I mean, if you are on a project with somebody, even if it's an unpaid internship, it's who you know and who knows you, just like what you said.
College athletics on campuses, I mean, you know, you're working on building a job description. So if you have those transitional skills and you have the right contacts and you build your relationship, not that we just met tonight, but hey, what job you got again? but you know, but we kept in touch. You know, follow-ups are important, particularly to say. But I think, you know, if you build that relationship and you really show the interest and the drive to working, whatever type of athletic, whether it's pro, you know, amateur or college, then I mean, it's there. And so, you know, it's all about your drive and how you're going to highlight those skills. The resume is important, but you have to highlight those skills that works for that job description you're applying for. And so you have to know what you want to do. You can't decide I want to work in sports. You have to find what path that you want to work in, whether it's on the business financial side, whether it's on, you know, the life skills, academic advising side, you know, whether it's on the sales, sponsorship side. I think, you know, once you get an idea of that and do your research, you'll find out, you know, my passion will lie here. And it's okay to take a bump in the road and say, well, that was nice, but I'll come back this way a little bit, a little too much. So.
Yes. And I'm a campaign manager for a local candidate. So I don't have the background in sports. The only thing I played in high school was Nintendo. But sports interests me. I want to be involved in the field. I do have a lot of experience that can be correlated to what would be necessary in the field. Do you think it's necessary to then go back to school and get the MBA in sports management and do all of that? Or is it better to leverage what I do know for available positions?
I would just say personal, I would think based on your timing, you don't have to have an MBA, you don't have to get a degree in sports management. If you're a campaign manager, a lot of that is the same skills working. When you're EA Sports, is a video game. Video games are huge now. For everybody in here, everybody can be in sports tomorrow, write your own blog. You're a recruiting coordinator. That's how people are having it. Mel Kiper didn't start here. He wasn't on ESPN when he started. He started going around looking at kids and became, I'm the authority on this. So if you have something you're passionate about, you have a blog, you have a computer, you can start there. So that's not necessary. But I think the latest point, if you have that, each one of these Fortune 500 companies, they have somebody. You can't have a global park with somebody evaluating how much we're going to make this money back. So I would think based on your own personal situation, and others may have some other comments on that, but it's not necessary.
I think at a certain point, it's just a matter of, you know, when I'm hiring people, I'm not necessarily always looking at what degree they have, I'm looking at what skills they have. And so if you can build those skills, if you can take the skills that you have as a campaign manager and transfer them to whatever area of sports you want to get into, I think that's going to be more valuable than a degree that you're going to get. I'm not discouraging a degree by any means, but I'm just saying that when I look at a resume, I'm going to look at your experience. You know, if it's an entry-level position, if it's a manager-level position, things like that, I'm going to look at your experience before I'm going to look at your degree.
I've heard a lot of people talk about getting an MBA and focusing on sports management. My suggestion would be that you don't do it. And the reason why is you limit yourself in that avenue. There's more ways to get into sports than what many of you all think. For instance, with Allison's, we sponsor the Rangers, we sponsor the Cowboys, we sponsor the Mavericks, we have TCU, we have LSU. So in my job, I meet athletes every single day of my life. But the thing is, I'm an accountant. And having good negotiation skills is probably the most important thing, because now you're sitting in a room with the Jerry Jones. Now you're sitting in a room to make a deal with the Rangers. So don't limit yourself from that standpoint. There are many ways to go about it. And yes, the salary level is much higher when you go that other route, because you're not limited from that standpoint. Because there are many companies that deal with sports companies every day. We at Albertsons, we have Jason Witten. We work with Emmett Smith. We work with all of these athletes all the time with their charities and things of that nature. And go to events all the time. But don't limit yourself by saying sports, sports, sports. You can get there from many different routes. Every time when you come in this ballpark, you see all the companies that work with the Rangers. Every single one of those companies provide an opportunity for you to get into sports. Because at Albertsons, we have a ton of tickets to the Cowboy games. We have a tent at the game. We need people to volunteer to work that tent. They get to meet the Charles Haleys, the Emmett Smith when they come and work the tent. So there's many different ways to get into it. I personally wouldn't limit myself by just saying, I'm going to get an MBA and then focus on the sports side, because there are many different ways to get in.
I think you bring up a really good point. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think you bring up a really good point is that I think that what you heard, at least from myself and from Chris, is that you can start out in one aspect of your career and then realize that's really not for you. And so if you do exactly what he's saying, is just get a general MBA, I think that you may be a little better off, because you're able to go into a broader spectrum and you have a broader opportunity there in that sense. It's not to say that a concentration is a bad thing, but it's just that, like you said, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself.
I had the opportunity to watch the career of Mr. Larry Lundy, and a lot of things that was on his resume that was really good. There are some other things that Larry was able to do as we worked together at Advantage Marketing Group some 20 years ago, where you take a property like the Bayou Classic, which the general market had no knowledge of, the black market loved. So how do you take a property that's admired in the black community, put it on NBC, and now you get to see Southern and Gremlin every Saturday after Thanksgiving? So let me ask you this, Larry. Longevity. I mean, how do you stay in the business for over 20 years? What's the key?
It's like that old African proverb, you have to get up running, and whether you're the lion or the gazelle, either way, you better be running. So, you eat or be eaten. So, but I think staying on time is part of, being facetious a little bit about the technology, is you have to really continue to keep abreast of what's happening. Today, what we're talking about, Twitter may not be here tomorrow. So you have to be constantly read a lot on trades, the Ad Age, Brand Weeks, Sports Business Journal, and the publisher Sports Business Journal said he would give everybody here a free 4-week subscription if you emailed him directly, and I'll give you guys that information. So I think it's just filling a need, filling a void, and find what's next. Just like Mr. Porter said, you don't have to be in sports to be in sports, but just trying to figure out where they're at, like the Bayou Class, to create things that people are doing this every day. I mean, if you look up 1 million cups of coffee, every Wednesday they have 2 new businesses that do their pitch. They tell you what they're trying to do, how they're doing it, and in that room, it's almost like the Silicon Valley. You're seeing companies that are being made overnight, and there were just 2 in the Dallas Morning News on the front page division. Cardigan socks, and this guy's come up with ideas. I'm going to make socks. I'm going to make them how I want them, and I'm going to charge $9 to get a surprise socks box. Now, who would think that would be it? And he's making $1 million a year on socks. So I'm just saying, just be creative, and longevity-wise, just like in your jobs, you just have to keep in touch. And like I said, this is not an easy thing. I don't care if you're in business. Otherwise, you always have to be better. And everybody in this room knows what I'm talking about. Better than the average bears, because tomorrow's not promising. Yeah, but I would think just a couple things to keep in mind, since this is the Final Four is coming here. I think you should all get out in the community. There's going to be something called Bracket Town, which is kind of like a theme park of basketball. It's going to be at the convention center. There's going to be a free dribble-thon if you have kids, you want to dribble from the convention center. But everywhere, just like Mr. Porter said, there's going to be somebody that's tasked with leveraging the brand of Hershey's, of the NCAA, of AT&T for their business goals. So with that, I don't know if any of you have some closing thoughts, but just give the audience maybe some thoughts of what your advice would be to them, knowing what you know now from your short or long-term career, that you would advise you to give to the audience? Amber, we'll go with you and come back down.
Never get to think. I think the main thing that's been said here as far as a takeaway is sports is a business. We've got accounting people, we've got people that take out the trash. I mean, it's, you know, run the gambit. And at the end of the day, while I work in an environment that has a lot of signed basketballs and footballs and a lot of, you know, we got the tickers and the flat screen TVs, and we stopped work today to start watching, you know, March Madness, and we had a big party, and yes, we drank in the middle of the day. Well, all that is true. At the end of the day, I have 75 emails in my inbox that I have to address. So it's a business, and you know, much like what was said, it's like you're getting into a business, and it's really no different than that if you take away all the bells and whistles.
I think the main takeaway that I'd like to leave with you all is just make sure that you manage and maintain your network and your relationships. I think that's probably the biggest thing that's helped me in my career, is just really getting to know the right people and making sure that those people know who I am and they have good things to say about me. As long as you can do that, I think that, you know, you'll go as far as you want to go. And then the other thing is really just, if you want to work in sports, just make sure you have a passion for sports. Make sure you really care about it. This is something that you really want to do, and you don't want to do it just because it's, you know, maybe the cool thing to do, and it's maybe something that, you know, you get tickets to a game. You actually really have to like it. So, you know, for me, I know that I'm a fan. I'm a football fan. That's why I love working in football. I love the championship aspect of it. And so it's easy for me to go to work every day. So just whatever you do, just make sure that it's something that you're passionate about and that you really love to do.
Everything's pretty much already been answered. The only one thing I would probably add is just to be confident. There's so many positions out here in sport management where there's so many candidates who want that position. So if you already have that position, try and do everything that you can to secure it, because it took me 300 seconds to walk in the door. It could take me 300 seconds just to leave the door that quickly. And then also just to stay involved. Yeah, shout out to Brian.
And not to be redundant, but I think one thing for me is you know, not being the native of Dallas is, you know, don't be afraid to get to know your community. Like, this is great here. You're kind of comfortable. Everyone may have an MBA, you may not, but you're comfortable in a business setting. But, you know, open up your doors to, you know, give back and, you know, learn and network that way as well. Because, you know, you have to know where you are, know where you're going. That old saying type of deal. And, you know, I think that's huge in my success here in Dallas. And I'll continue to, you know, grow. And thanks for having us tonight. Really appreciate being here.
And last but not least, I would also say is that don't be afraid to take a job that's not sports. I mean, you can make 6 or 7 figures by your own Maverick season tickets. And I'm old enough now to have my interns have hired me. And sometimes, like I said, when you're used to, you know, Disney and stock options and things happen, it's great. But when you have your own business and AOL goes free and they're your biggest client, you might have to think about some other things. So what I'm saying to you is be flexible, but you can always be in sports and always play and always have a good time. But you can still be a senior executive at any 4,500 company, yourself, your nonprofit, or wherever it might be. So just keep all your options open. And I think the greatest resource you have are the people in this room. One thing I think the General Market does very well is network, and they're taking care of each other. A lot of different communities do that too. So I think one thing I would say, if you have your business card, I don't know, Breon, if you have a bowl or you should leave it at the front, we have started the Black Sports Professionals here to do just what we're doing tonight. So we're going to have regular meetings, and everybody will be welcome, and we do different activities together, but it's how we can help each other, because everybody doesn't always stay in sports, but there's something we can do for each other, by each other, to help our community as well, just like Chris said. That's it. Thanks. Thanks for all your doing.
Well, thank you guys for coming. We definitely appreciate you guys for showing up for this outstanding event. I'd like to personally thank Larry for doing an outstanding job, as he always do. Let's just give him a round of applause. And we'd like to thank Breon for letting us come. And before I let you guys go tonight, I need you guys to do me one big favor. We're going to be sending out a survey in the next couple of days. please fill it out. So one of the things we want to make sure we understand what you guys want us to, looking for us to do. We're here to serve you, okay? I already see that somebody want to chase money. We need to figure out an event and make sure he chases money right, okay? Just want to remind you guys, we can come up with some great ideas, but we're here to serve you guys. Just inform us, give us some ideas. Let's communicate. Let's put on one outstanding forum events like this to educate us the kids overall. Thank you very much. Hey, enjoy the rest of the evening.